Hey, welcome to this video stream. I'm Tim McGrew and Tom Gilson is here with me. We are continuing our little verbal trek through some of the questions that Christians think about and that people would most like answers to do. Today we are picking a really hot topic. We're going to pick the topic of Christians and politics. Obviously, something that gets a lot of people really excited, excited in good ways, excited in bad ways. But we thought that there were a lot of things to say about this, and that there are a lot of misconceptions, and then there are also some things that Christians sometimes get wrong. And we'd like to talk about both of those. So, Tom, I'm going to flip it over to you. Where do we start?
Well, let's start with some ways Christians can get it wrong, because we're in a political season here now, and
Right.
there is always the danger of idolatry, and in just the sense of thinking that some candidate, some presidential candidate in particular, is going to be our salvation. The excitement around Donald Trump in particular among evangelicals is incredible. The excitement is not always in favor of him, but there's an awful lot of pro-Trump excitement, and a lot of it has the character of this is the person who is going to protect us from the evil ones. We have to be cautious not to make the mistake of thinking that he's our savior,
or that anyone is.
Yeah. There's no state candidate, no local candidate, no congressional candidate. There is one answer to the problems of the world, and his name is Jesus Christ. And the problems of the world are in his hands. He is letting some things happen for a reason, and he chooses who our kings and authorities are. I don't understand his choices very often. I think we have a responsibility to do our best to make good choices, but in alignment with what God has revealed of his character and his morality and his will. But in the end, there is only one Savior, and let's not get confused over that. It'd be a very dangerous mistake to make.
Which is not to say that we don't exercise judgment. We have to exercise judgment. We have to assess things because we are participants in the political process. We have the privilege of living in a country at a time where we have some voice in what happens. That voice is spread out among all the voting citizens, and that's quite a spread. But This is something that we need to take seriously. And what that means is that we need to really think hard about what we're confronted with when we make choices. It's easy to slide into one of two kind of extreme positions. One of them is saying, if this person that I would like to vote for otherwise, or that some of my friends want to vote for, or some people tell me to vote for, is anything less than the most flawless character ever seen, then I can't vote for that person.
Right.
There's a mistake. And then the other mistake is saying, I'm going to give this person a pass for grave flaws in character or in action because I so desperately want to achieve this particular political end, and I see this as the most expedient way to do it. It's possible, and I dare say it's done, to slide into either of those errors. The interesting thing is that people who are sliding into one generally see only those who are sliding into the other. That's the only other alternative, and so there's a lot of polarization, but this is a kind of polarization. How do we treat a candidate? No one can be elected, or anyone has to be elected if he's just slightly this side of the devil. Is that where we are? And I would like to think that we could be neither of those places. And just to make myself perfectly clear, I think that thoughtful Christians might come down differently.
I think so too. And
as to how some of that plays out, I'm not saying all options are equally accessible, but I think that there is room for Christians to extend one another just some grace and to say, you know what, I can't do what you're doing here, but at least I see it as the outcome of careful, thoughtful, prayerful deliberation and an attempt to square your decision with your Christian principles. And I think it's a mistake lightly to bind someone else's conscience to the choice that you want them to make.
The polarization, too, that you mentioned has a really negative effect, which is it tends to lead to people oversimplifying things. Trump is all good or all bad. Kamala Harris is all good or all bad. And neither of those is true. You might tend to think one is more true than the other in either case, but neither one is all true, and neither choice is all good or all bad or all demonic or all heavenly. It's what we're going to be talking about here is very complex. And so we're going to try to break it down into some simplifying categories, of which we have 4 or 5. Actually, we've just discussed the 5th one. We're going to come back to it, which is let's not make an idol out of politics. And but this is not a matter of Trump. There is, I think, a sense that this started with Donald Trump for people with a short memory. But David Kinnaman and Gabe Lyons published Unchristian in 2007, and the subtitle is "What a New Generation Really Thinks About Christianity and Why It Matters," and it's about let's see, I believe the first words in it are Christianity has an image problem. Yes, first words, chapter 1, page 1, page 11, but who's counting? And the image problem that we have includes that we are over political, that we are too political. That when they did a word association study back then, Kinnaman at the time was the, and still is, to my knowledge, the president of the Barna Group, founded by George Barna, but he took over in its leadership, and the famous Christian-based polling organization. That when they did a word association study, they found that the number one Christian people named, who can you think of who's a Christian? And the number one person was George W. Bush, a politician, president, and not way ahead of any clerics, any pastors, priests, anybody. So even at that time, it was the perception that Christians were too political. So let's not think that this is a Donald Trump versus some other candidate problem. This goes way back earlier than that. And we have a perception, we have an image problem, perhaps, although I have my own objections to that being put that way. If we do, to the extent that we do, it goes back a long time compared to the usual cultural memory with which our social media seems to be aware of.
Right. I think 2 questions come to my mind here. One question is, and this is a very simple question, but I'm finding that people are actually quite divided on the answer. Do Christians have a right to bring their political convictions that are grounded in principles of their Christian worldview into the public square? Or because they are religious, does that automatically disqualify them from bringing those things into the public square?
Yeah, well, the First Amendment to the Constitution ostensibly on paper says we have at least as much right, if not more. We have a specially carved out right to there is no religious test for political office. There's no religious test for political speech. By implication, there's no reason to think that we shouldn't have it. But my goodness, it is being shut down.
Yes.
It's being it's not so much in the U.S. yet. But Tim, you were talking about some folks overseas that were being shut down badly, as we
Good,
discussed this yesterday.
good grief. Yeah, I mean, from the reaction in France to Pavel Durov, his arrest there for having created an encrypted messaging app, to
Mm-hmm.
the actions of this judge in Brazil, Alexandre de Moraes, who is literally telling people you can't use an unmoderated social media network like X. You cannot use a virtual private network. There will be a fine of nearly, comes to about $8,900 a day for anyone caught using a virtual private network. This is, my first reaction was, man, it's just too bad that the Brazilian Constitution doesn't protect free speech. And then you go and you read the Brazilian Constitution, and it's right there, and explicitly, that you cannot censor political speech. It's right out in the open. And that isn't stopping these people at all. So now that's not at the moment directed particularly at religious speech. But when mechanisms like that are in place, eventually they'll fall into the hands of someone who wants to use them against me or against you. And this is true no matter where you come down, no matter how you describe yourself. Describe yourself as a libertarian, as a capitalist, as a conservative, as a liberal, as woke, wherever you are. Eventually, somebody who hates your ideas will get into power and will, if these mechanisms are available, have the option of making use of them against you. And it's not really human nature to refrain from using that kind of power. So
Right.
we're in a weird situation where globally, the ability to express one's political views freely, openly, is coming under a cloud, and that cloud has a word written on it, and the name of that cloud is disinformation management. They're going to manage your disinformation because you're saying things that they think not only are false, they think you're saying them and you know that they're false, and you're deliberately just trying to rouse the rabble or something, and so you deserve to be shut down.
Right.
And my word, there are publications out there clamoring for this with regard to, at the moment, social media platforms.
Yeah.
And
Elon Musk should go to jail.
That's right.
That's the
And
call.
yeah, Robert Reich.
Yeah.
I think there are 3 stories in the Guardian in the past week calling for
Yes.
Musk to go to jail because he won't submit to this kind of censorship. And there are some, really interesting undercurrents to all of that. There are some reasons that go back to something Mark Zuckerberg mentioned a little over a week ago in a letter to a congressional committee, saying that the then White House administration pressured them at /Facebook repeatedly to censor certain narratives, certain stories. And Zuckerberg is clearly perturbed by this, but also clearly, in at least some cases, gave in and went ahead and did it.
He did. Yeah.
And that's, again, we're looking at this from, at the moment, the perspective of free speech, and we're saying, wow, that's really not great for free speech. But then bringing it back around, if Christians have a right to speak in the public square, then they have a reason for defending the right of anyone to speak in the public square.
Not only that, but I have argued, I wrote an article on the stream, but there are compelling reasons that liberals, progressives, the left should be as much in favor of freedom of religion as anybody. And the reason is because it is our surest defense against tyranny. There are 2 choices as to who is ultimately in charge in the world. It is the person with the most money, guns, and power, or it is a transcendent God. And the default for too many governments over too much time has been to say, we have the money, guns, and power. We have what it takes to control you. We will control you. And the only defense against that is the person and or the church, the group, the religious body that stands up and says, you do not have the power. You do not have the moral right. Power is, might is right too often too. And it is the religious freedom of this country that has stood up and said there is another right, that another good, another thing that is not wrong, that supersedes anything any leader, president, king, magistrate could do. And the people who will have the strength to stand up and say that are the people who know that their future is secure, even if the government comes after them with lawyers or guns or incarceration or whatever. That is, for now, it is the left that is protected by the money, guns, and power. But how long is that guaranteed? How long would it take for it to flip and turn to the right, to fascism, to something like Hitler or Mussolini or whatever? It's for their protection.
Yeah. Something that has distressed me just as an observer, watching these things unfold, has been the appearance of people, and some of them have shown up, in social media, in my neck of the woods, who, it's very plain, have no objection to shutting down speech, but are quite sure that if it comes to that, if it comes to shutting down speech, they will be the ones who will get to say what shall be allowed and what shall not be allowed.
Right.
And they are censorious. They are just waiting for their chance to seize the levers of totalitarian power. I think there have always been people like this. I think it's a temptation. And it's a temptation that is all the more insidious because it hijacks something that is right and good, which is a sense of the importance of truth, right? Yeah. If I'm sure that my view is the true view, and other people are out there muddying the waters, darkening counsel, spreading misinformation, maybe willfully spreading disinformation, then the desire for truth can get hijacked into a desire to shut that down.
Yep.
And that is something that we all have an interest in resisting. Because again, if you set up a way for some people to do that to other people, eventually it will be placed into hands you did not want to see it in, and then you will have to live with that. My own political views over time have become sadder and more cynical as I've come to realize that things had a seamy underside that I was perhaps insulated from as I was growing up, and did not realize just how long things had been going on like that. There's a great comfort in Hebrews as we're told that we look for a city whose builder and maker is God. When Augustine wrote The City of God, one of the key points that he was making is that there is a city of God, but it's not a separate plot of land. It's not a separate set of buildings. It's growing up right in the middle of the city of man.
Yeah.
We're all around. It's right here, but its citizens are citizens of a heavenly city.
That's right. And we must live that way. Now, with your permission, I'd like to just kind of dive into a list of reasons that I think that this whole image of our being overly politicized is distorted.
Go for it.
And I think we need to be aware that this is not just like we've messed up. This isn't just we have fallen off the Christian rails and jumped on the Trump bandwagon, for example. That this isn't that. Besides the fact that it goes back way earlier than Trump, it's some of the politicization is overblown. We are, for example, political on public policy issues. I've heard people say, "Why are you so why are you so political? Why are you so up in arms about gay marriage? This goes back before Obergefell, but the question still applies. Why are you so? If you cared about marriage, you'd care about divorce too. Oh my goodness. The the gay marriage question then was a political question. It was going before legislatures. It finally got hijacked by the courts. But it was going before legislatures. It was a political question. Where do you deal with political questions publicly? But, we don't care about divorce. Well, maybe we do. How many thousands of sermons get preached on marriage every year? How many counseling sessions? How many small group Bible studies? How many marriage conferences? How many radio programs? How many? What is it? Millions of hours that churches spend on dealing with healthy marriages? How many divorce recovery groups? It's to make divorce a political topic at that time would have been strategically foolish. But were we ignoring it? My goodness, no. If the tip of the iceberg is 10% of the iceberg, what we were doing at the time with regard to homosexuality was the tip of the tip of the tip of the iceberg compared to what we were doing with regard to healthy marriage. But who sees that unless they go to church? You have to go to a church. You have to be aware of some of the culture, the teachings, everything that's going on. And so we got people from outside taking pot shots because all they know is what they see from outside. We do not need to duck and cower and say, oh, darn, that's bad. We're awful. When the truth is, we're doing the right things.
I see so many times on social media, which does tend to collect some of the worst in human behavior and amplify it. But I see so many times people who are not from a Christian religious tradition at all, saying things so spectacularly ignorant that I just think to myself, you don't have any Christian friends at all, do you? People who are saying, yeah, you may be pro-life, but you don't care about the mother and the baby once the baby's born, do you? Do you know any pro-lifers? Do you have any idea?
Oh,
yeah,
no.
well, you guys don't care about children who don't look like you. Do you know how many people there are who have adopted children who don't look like them, who have adopted children who are deformed, who have adopted children who have Down syndrome, who have done so knowingly, lovingly, opened their homes? Because I know lots of people like that right within my own circle, right here in my little Midwestern town. Yep. What do you mean we don't care about you? You have got to be kidding me. This is something that we care about a great deal. And here's one of my favorites. Oh yeah, you don't want there to be free access to abortion at all times? Well then, how about this? Men who get girls pregnant are going to have to pay child support. Response on the Christian side: your terms are acceptable.
Yeah, that's right.
Let's do this. So, and even
all of a sudden, it's not just a women's rights issue.
Threatening to enact this as legislation, and all the Christians are lining up saying, "This is great. Can we do this? Can we do this?" And then the legislation gets immediately withdrawn because crud, they liked it. What was that? No,
well, half of it isn't that we're too political; it's that they don't like our politics. How often do you hear them complaining about quote progressive Christians being too political?
The people with the megaphones right now are very largely the people who see enemies only to their own right.
Yeah.
Politically, and that this we have with us always. We just have to. I don't see a change coming in that anytime soon. But that's okay.
No,
we have to stop caring. We have to stop caring that much about what other people think when we know that we are doing things that are principled and correct. When we do know that,
right?
So now, some of the things that we're accused of, we should say, yes, you say that like it's a bad thing. I don't see what the problem is. And I think that it's just fair again to say people who hate the sorts of positions that Christians frequently find themselves moved to take have an outstanding PR machine. They really know how to, set up uh, the discourse, how to capture the terminology, how to find the most odious defenders of something they dislike and make those people the face of it, right? You find the unattractive, grumpy, misanthropic defenders of these views, and you give them the video time. They're the ones you interview. You don't want to interview somebody who's thoughtful, articulate, well-educated, and says, honestly, I think we just have a disagreement in views here. Let me explain my position, and I'll listen while you explain yours. That's not the person they want on the camera.
Oh no, our friend Sean McDowell was preparing to be interviewed by CNN when they did more conversation with him, and they called him back and said, "We can't use you. You are too," I forget the word. I don't know if it was conciliatory or too understanding, too empathetic. They
couldn't have somebody like that representing the Christian side, could we?
No.
Yes.
But you're touching here on a major reason. This is actually second point in the framework that I'm looking at here, and we're looking at, which is that some of the quote politicization is invented.
Yeah.
They have used their powerful PR machine to invent truths, false facts, really. That is that a contradiction in terms or what? But it is repeated, and it is some of it's subtle the way they do it, going as far back as the old bumper sticker that hate is not a family value, and what they're teaching there is that the Christians who believe in family values should not hate gays. That was the obvious connection.
They're teaching that they do hate gays, and that's a problem.
Right.
To which, again, I want to say, do you know very many Christians? Because I know a lot of them who have not just gay colleagues, gay acquaintances, gay students, but also gay friends.
And you don't see hate in the church. I have been to hundreds of churches. I have been a member of a dozen, as I've lived in different places around the country. I have never encountered this famous hate.
There may be
a few places.
There may be a few places out there, and if you dug for long enough and turned over enough rocks, maybe you could find a couple of places out there. But when you can't find them,
Twitter or X, sure, big time.
But when you can't find them, then you make them up, right? You make up a narrative about the death of Matthew Shepard, and then you don't allow that narrative to be questioned, and at least until it's served its useful purpose, and then everybody's forgotten it.
Yeah.
And then it comes out, oh, this wasn't what we portrayed that as at all, but the damage is done. People have had their minds turned and persuaded, often by a story. It often doesn't take statistics. It takes a story to change people's minds.
Yep.
A story is a very powerful thing. And one story about one person, a story that might be told truthfully or might be told with very little regard to the truth, often has more effect than any number of statistical studies done thoughtfully and carefully.
Yeah. So our politicization is overblown. Some of it's invented. Some of it is badly distorted, especially I think this is where the Donald Trump thing comes in, that so many people are saying, you support Donald Trump, then you must be okay with his philandering, with his he's a felon. You're okay with everything wrong with him. And what that does is it plays into the mistake of the polarization, simplification, over a one-dimensionalizing of everything, as if politics wasn't the art of the complicated and the real. I have never loved everything about Donald Trump. I would say in 2016 I voted for him because he was a superior candidate to Hillary Clinton in numerous ways. That doesn't mean I loved everything about him.
Honestly, I think we need a distinction.
This year's elections are going to be more complicated, but
I think we need a distinction between people who support candidate X and people who are voting for candidate X. And I would put it that
or
way.
voting for candidates. Actually,
Right.
I would.
I saw someone say openly the other day, and this is not a Christian, by the way, can we stop pretending that Trump voters are all Trump supporters? A
Yeah.
lot of people I know who are going to vote for Donald Trump despise him in many ways. They are doing what they're doing because they see it as the lesser of two evils, maybe two very great evils, and they're very sad about being confronted with the evils.
Mm-hmm.
I know people who see things that way and are going to vote for Trump. I know people who see things that way and are not going to vote for either major candidate. People are trying to make the best decisions they can in a very, very messy environment. But to suppose that if you were to find that a majority of soft-styled evangelicals said that they had voted for Trump, this meant that they supported Trump in the sense of endorsing things that he's done, things that he stands for, I think you would find that's just a very misleading picture as well. So just saying this
Mm-hmm.
for just for the sake of clarity, I think the distinction matters. There may be, I don't move in these circles as much, but there may be a parallel phenomenon among people with regard to Kamala Harris who say, man, I dislike a lot of things she stands for. I'm going to give her a vote because I think she's the lesser of two evils. I can have a conversation with somebody who comes at it with that kind of mindset. But I think it's very careful. We should very carefully separate the idea of voting for someone from endorsing everything that that person has done, or even very much that that person has done. These are strange times, and we are confronted with a really painful set of options right now. And I feel for people who are going through trying to sort this. These are by no means the kinds of options that I would like to think that we deserve. On the other hand, we did sort of get them, so maybe they are what we deserve.
Now, what about those who, and there are a lot of leaders who are saying that if you vote for Trump, if you attend a rally, whatever, you are doing real damage to Christian witness because you are supporting this bad man in his bad deeds. And dare I name names, Russell Moore, David French, and other prominent leaders where they've even said, for the sake of unity, we should drop Trump for the sake of Christian unity. I don't know that that's the only way to achieve unity on this, but what do you think about that?
Look, if the point were simply Christians should be very clear that they do not endorse some of the definitely wrong and evil things that candidates have done, I would be wholly on board.
Yes.
At this point, we have hard questions to ask, honestly, about the candidates at the top of both tickets. There's a lot going on there.
Yes.
I'm not interested right now in getting into the particulars of that question because, as I said before, I think that it is possible for committed Christians taking their worldview seriously to disagree on just where that line falls between I can hold my nose and vote for this candidate and I can't in conscience vote for this candidate at all.
Yeah.
And I want to respect that, and I don't want to bind burdens on anyone's back for having a position on that might be different from the position that I myself take.
Mm-hmm.
But that is not what the claim is. The claim is you can't separate yourself from a candidate simply by saying, I really disapprove of these things that this candidate has done, and I am not endorsing them in any way, and I think this is a very flawed person. You're not even allowed to say that. And what's more, you have to get on board with someone who opposes that candidate, no matter how flawed that opposition choice might be. Wow. I mean, in the name of
Christian witness.
in the name of Christian witness, in the name of conservatism,
Yeah.
we're being asked to vote for someone who is adamantly opposed to every moral position that Christians have been trying to take a stand on. At this point, I think we need to get a hold of Meg Basham's book, Shepherds for Sale, and we need to read the relevant chapters. This is not a happy topic, but it turns out that there has been ideological capture. There are organizations funded by George Soros where internally the projects they're running are referred to as rent and evangelical. And we need to be aware that there's a concerted effort to change the narrative within evangelical circles, particularly on a number of issues, and that effort is connected with money, and that money is being directed to persons, and those persons are people who have a certain amount of power. And we can't close our eyes.
Right.
We can't say, oh, surely that's not happening. Actually, it is happening. And so we need to be wise as serpents as well as harmless as doves to use biblical language when we're thinking about these things.
And the simplification factor keeps coming in my mind, which is it's one candidate or the other. When what it could be is, I'm sorry, but this is more complex than that. For the sake of my Christian witness, I will distance myself from this part of this person's messaging or persona or history. For the sake of the administration of the country, I can still vote for this person because he's or she is a better choice than the other.
Or vote against the other. Sometimes I wish...
Or vote against the other. Yes, right. Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
Sometimes I wish that we could cast a negative vote. Instead of voting for someone, I'd like to vote against so-and-so. And if neither candidate could emerge with a positive score, then we should have a do-over. That would have all kinds of problems, but it has occurred to me sometimes to wish that I could cast a negative rather than a positive vote.
Right. So that's, we've talked about politicization being overblown, being invented, badly distorted. We've already touched on this some, but a lot of our political activity is not wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, stop being so ducking in a hole over it. We should be political. My goodness, if we're not, we live in a constitutional republic where each one of us above a certain age has been given the right to vote. Now, what that means is obviously on a reduced scale, we are like sovereigns. A sovereign who doesn't do his constitutional duty to lead the country, not that I'm thinking of anybody right now, is, boy, stuck that one in.
Has abdicated, right.
Abdicated. And if we do not vote, if we do not speak, because that's part of our constitutional privilege and what we have been granted and assigned, you might even say, in the Constitution is a constitutional duty to govern the country, at least with our vote one day every couple of years locally and once every 4 years nationally. We have been granted that responsibility, and to abdicate it is wrong. I get, and to not speak up is nearly as wrong, maybe not quite as obviously wrong, but I do not get the question, should Christians be involved in politics? If you were born in America, you're involved in politics. It's in the paper you were born under.
Right. You have certain responsibilities. But I think as Christians, we need to be aware of a particular trap, which is the trap of saying you can lobby for something on the basis of your Christian convictions only if you've got a Bible verse that is the proof text for it.
Oh,
There's
oh
a
boy.
very long-standing understanding, which you can find going back to the Old Testament prophets, that there's a law above the law, that there is a law that's written on the heart, and that this is not fuzzy. This is not a license for subjective, do whatever you feel like ism, but
Mm-hmm.
there are some things that we can't not know. And all of constitutional law is based on a bedrock understanding of common law that doesn't even need to be written because the principles of it are too widely understood to require spelling out explicitly. Now, when there are a large number of people who no longer understand that, then yes, we have trouble. We
Yeah.
are in difficulties. But so long as we understand that we don't have to have a proof text in order to be taking a position that is morally right. And
Oh, can you legislate morality, Tim?
what else do we legislate besides moral restrictions on behavior? Why don't we allow necrophilia? Why don't we allow infanticide? Why don't we allow you to marry your desk? There are all kinds of prohibitions that we make, and all of them are ultimately traceable back to some kind of a moral principle.
Mm-hmm.
You can scarcely legislate anything, but you always have some moral basis. The question is
Oh,
not,
I
is
would
legislation... Sorry,
put
go
even
ahead.
stronger than that. If there's going to be some kind of a sanction involved with any kind of legislation, that sanction, whether it be a $5 parking ticket or whether it be life incarceration for murder, that has to be morally justified. You are making a moral comparison saying that it is less immoral to charge the $5 than it is to let the person park there. There is, otherwise, you're taking $5 from somebody without
Right.
justification, without moral
It's just a
justification.
shakedown. Right.
Yeah,
And if it's
yeah,
just a shakedown, then we have words for this. Right.
yeah. So you can't not, in any sense of the word, legislate morality. The closest thing you can come to it is substitute power for morality.
Oh, that's going to work really well.
We
Where have
don't
we seen
want
that
that.
tried?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. And so, yeah, you can say you can't park there. I'm charging you $5, and you say, "What's your moral justification?" And you say, "I'm in charge." Well, we don't want to live under that.
Yeah. Have you seen the videos going around of the Venezuelan gangs who have taken over a couple of apartment buildings in Aurora, Colorado?
Oh, I have an on good authority on X that that's not true.
Sure.
Sure.
Who
Yeah.
are you
Right.
going to believe? Who are you going to
Right.
believe?
Yeah.
The authorities or your lying eyes? Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Or it's just we have a duty as Christians because let's have the courage of our convictions. Let's not make the mistake Chesterton warned against of being humble about our convictions. We who know God know God's ways, and I'm trying to put this in terms of the common law, the natural law that you also referred to, but that's Romans 2 tells us God wrote that on our hearts. That is a way of God. That is a higher transcendent fact about reality, which is that there is good in the world, that we have some reason to believe that we have been entitled, that we've been given revelation of, and that we can understand, and that we are by God's Holy Spirit in touch with. And we can decide that's not true, and we can just hide and we can cower, or we can say, if it's true, then it's true. And we know what's better, morally speaking. And in the way we understand people, the way we understand institutions, we have contact with that. We hold that humbly. We hold it in communication with others who can correct us if we've misunderstood. But it's not with the same kind of humility that says that, okay, there's no God. They say there's no God. We say there is a God. We're coming at this at parity. We don't have to take that parity position, parity, not parroting. It's not necessary. We can speak what we know is true, and we had better.
Right. And we should not fall into the kind of equivalence trap that says, yeah, well, that's like just your opinion, man, and this is my opinion, and I'm entitled to mine and you're entitled to yours. If we actually are Christians by conviction, if we're persuaded that it's true, then we're persuaded by evidence. That's the way to become persuaded. And if you're persuaded by evidence, then you have a reason for thinking that you're right about these things. The reason might be one that you could get wrong. It might lead you to what Thomas Sowell calls a tragic vision, where you realize the truth about these things is that human beings and human societies are always going to suffer from being screwed up, and we're going to keep on blowing this in various ways, and we can try to put guardrails along the sides of the road to keep this from taking us over a cliff, but there are always people who are going to bang the guardrails.
Yeah. And yet there is better and there is worse.
There is.
The United States has experienced better. It has not been uniformly better, certainly for people of color. We won't make false claims there. We won't underplay that. But it has been better for us than it has been for so many cultures around the world. I've been to Russia. I've been to China. I've been to Cuba. And I have seen it with my eyes. I do not think it's possibly true that anybody's experience, well, on average, and unless you're the powerful, is better in those societies than it is here. And
I have
in
friends
this country,
in India.
Yeah, we're in this country where we have failed morally. We have also fought and recovered, not everything, but a lot, because we had the basis on which to do that. There is better and there is worse, and we can still, as Christians in politics, seek the better, even if we can't expect the best or the perfect.
And that is a kind of idolatry when we look at what's on offer and we make the mistake of thinking that because something else is terrible, what we've got must be right or perfect in all respects. And that, I guess, sort of circles back around to the point you began with, that we need not to replace Christ with any other vision. Nothing else is going to lead us aright. Nothing else is a secure way to salvation. Politics is not a safe path to salvation, though the redeemed have a right to speak up politically. And we need to be ready. We need to be willing to articulate our reasons and to articulate them clearly, and to the extent that we're given grace to do this, to do it in a way that can be understood by those who perhaps don't right now share those convictions of ours. That's an important task, but we still have no continuing city here. We still have not here the place that we're longing for. That is somewhere else.
And among ourselves, we must keep Christ at the center. There will be times when in the public square, we need to make it clear that Christ is at the center. Strategically, that won't always persuade. And strategic wisdom is wise as serpents, innocent as doves, perhaps. It's not a bad idea. But it is essential, because the idolatry of which we have spoken here is easy to fall into. It is essential that we keep reminding ourselves that Christ is at the center. There is no Savior. There is no salvation other than in Him. God decides who He sets up in positions of authority. If the other candidate wins in November, God has not lost. That would be the hugest error we could make, is to assume that He's lost, that Christ is wringing His hands in heaven, wondering what to do now.
Oh no, I
No
didn't
such
get it to
thing.
go my way.
Yeah, no such thing.
Right.
But that does not lead us to fatalism either.
Correct.
He has, for some crazy reason, chosen to work through people. He works through leaders. It's everywhere in the Bible. He works through leaders, and He works through leaders at not just the Moses level, but at the Aaron and the Bezalel and the Eleazar level and the Aholiab level, if they were the craftsmen who built the
All
tabernacle.
the way down.
And so it goes all the way down. He works through us, and He intends to, and it's our responsibility to be on His agenda. So we're not talking fatalism, but we're also not talking idolatry here.
Right. Two grave errors, both to be avoided. It is possible.
Yeah. That might wrap it up. What do you think?
I think so. I think that's a good place to end it.
And may my candidate win. No. May God's will be done.
Right.
May God's will be done, and may He give us all wisdom.
Wisdom and grace. Amen.
Yeah. One more thing, Tim, your mention of evidence. This is part of a series where we are talking Christian evidences. And the point of this was that Christians' politicization, it could in some ways be evidence against faith. We could get it wrong. But we should not overinterpret that it is often overblown, invented, distorted, corrupted, and that it is not wrong for us to be involved in politics. And these things, when they happen, are not evidence against the faith. They are often evidence for the opposition's effectiveness in PR and not much more. So Christians, be strong. Don't let this cause you to hide and cower and worry about your faith. Just be strong, be wise, be godly, be Christ-centered, and be involved.
Amen.
Amen.